Welcome friends, are you the type of wargamer who loves to know how your units perform in any given situation? Do you like to know how much damage you can expect out of a unit when building lists so you can prepare for all situations? Then this is the video for you. Today we'll be crunching the numbers on Bloodletters to see how much damage they can really do. In this video, we're going to see how much damage a unit of 10 Bloodletters can do. We'll start with the base profile, and one by one we'll apply any possible buffs to see how much damage we can top out at. Each time we'll compare it against all possible armor saves and ward saves so you can get a better idea of how they stack up against different armies and units. By the end of this video, you should have a good idea of how much damage you can expect a unit of Bloodletters to do next time you play. We'll be using a standard unit of 10, and if you use a reinforced unit, you can just double the numbers shown. Before we dive into the numbers, we'll take a quick look at their weapon profiles and all abilities you can use to buff them. Bloodletters have just one weapon profile, the Hellblade, and as far as infantry weapons go, it packs a decent punch with 2 attacks, 3x3s, 1 rend, 1 damage, with a special rule of crit mortals. With a unit of 10 Bloodletters, the average amount of crit mortals, 20 attacks, is 3.3, so you can expect anywhere from 3 to 4 mortal wounds a turn. This weapon alone will do some good damage, but let's take a look at the buffs we have available to increase the damage output. The first is the command all-out attack. It adds 1 to their hit rolls. Next, we have a couple battle traits that can provide some buffs. These are gained by spending blood tithe points. Blood tithe points are obtained each time a unit is destroyed, both friendly and foe, along with a few other specific ways but we will not get into in this video. You can only use one of these abilities each turn, so if you want to stack them, they'll take multiple turns to do so. The first blood tithe bonus you can give is Heads Must Roll. This costs 6 blood tithe points and provides +1 rend to all friendly Blades of Khorne units, increasing their rend to 2. The next blood tithe ability is Slaughter or Triumphant. This ability has 2 options you can choose from, but for this video we'll be looking at the first ability, add 1 to the attack characteristics of melee weapons for friendly Blades of Khorne units, bumping them from 2 attacks up to 3. The final buff we can give the Bloodletters is through a prayer called Unholy Flames. This has a cast roll of 5 for a single buff, and if you cast roll on a 10 or higher, it applies 2 buffs. The first buff you always get is add 1 to the rend roll. The extra buff you get, if you roll 10 or more, is add 1 to the wound roll for all attacks for the rest of the turn. As a note, before we get started, there'll be a lot of numbers to look at and to take in, but you can pause the video at any point to look them over and to come back and review the specific charts you are interested in. I've put timestamps in the description for each buff so you can easily find them. With all that out of the way, let's take a look at the damage numbers and start adding on buffs to really pump them up. First is the base weapon profile with no buffs. In the chart, you'll see all the different enemy save values down at the bottom. I've added an example unit to each value as a reference point. All the numbers shown are calculated after all the hit, wound, and save rolls have been added, and any special rules have been applied. In this case, it was just crit mortals. The bars in the red is the base damage they do versus each armor save value. The blue bar calculates the number after 6+ ward save, the purple is calculated after 5+ ward save, and the green is calculated after 4+ ward save. For the most part, I will not be going over the ward save values when we discuss the numbers, as they are situational and not all enemies will have it. If you know you're going to play against something with a ward save, you can review the charts and check the damage numbers for each save value. A unit of 10 Bloodletters will do on average 5.6 damage to a 2+ save unit. This is fairly high numbered thanks to the 3 to 4 crit mortals you'll be doing. On the other hand, against standard infantry like clan rats with a 5+ save, they will do 8.9 base damage. Bloodletters not as good as taking out large units due to their low number of attacks and only having 1 damage, but the crit mortals does make them more effective against more heavily armored units like Annihilators, where they can kill almost 2 a turn. That is over 100 points worth of Annihilators versus 70-ish points worth of clan rats. Points, of course, are based on the time I'm recording this video. Let's move on to the first buff we can apply, which is the command all-out attack. Looking at the chart, we can see that this bumps their damage numbers up slightly, doing 6.3 damage to 2+ save unit, which is up from 5.6 from the base profile, and 10.7 to a 5+ save unit, which is up from 8.9 on the base. Not a huge improvement, but can help kill a couple more clan rats or to ensure you finish off an extra Annihilator. If we look at the percentage of damage increase versus the base weapon profile, we can see that all-out attack gives a greater damage increase versus the weaker units than it does against heavily armored units. Only a 13% increase versus 2+ save units, and a 16% increase versus 3+ save units, while it gives over 20% to the 5+ and 6+ save units. The next buff we can apply is the blood tithe ability Heads Must Roll, or it could also be the prayer Unholy Flames if you only cast the base ability. Both of these add 1 to the rend characteristic. You're now doing 6.7 damage to the 2+ save Annihilators and 10 damage to the 5 and 6 save units. Based on the percentage of damage increase, you can see that the +1 rend characteristic is actually a larger damage increase than the +1 to hit for the more armored units. But this buff is not as useful against weaker units like clan rats or ghouls, as you're wasting the extra rend as you have already negated their armor save. Moving on to the next one, we can look at the prayer Unholy Flames, but this time let's take a look at the 10 plus cast where we get +1 to rend and +1 to wound. We're starting to see some bigger number jumps across the board here, as the +1 to wound works against all armor types and can help spike those numbers up. Against the 2+ save, we're sitting at 7.5 damage. That's about 2.5 Annihilators. Against the Clan Rats, we're at 11.7 damage. These numbers are good, but they're still pound for pound better against the high armored units. We can see a much larger jump in the damage output across the board thanks to the +1 to wound. We can see almost a 30% increase in damage versus our base profile versus all armor saves except the 6+, because we've already ignored the armor save with our Rend 1. For the last individual buff we'll look at is the Blood Tithe ability Slaughterer Triumphant. For this we'll choose the +1 attack option. This ability costs 8 Blood Tithe points, which is very expensive and probably can't be achieved in the first few rounds of the game. Looking at the numbers, we can see the reason it's so expensive. This ability gives the single highest damage increase to the Bloodletters compared to all of their buffs. 8.3 damage to the 2+ save Annihilators, and 13.3 damage to the 5+ save Clan Rats. If you get some favorable rolls, you could wipe out an entire unit of Annihilators in one turn. Based on the percentages, this gives a massive boost to damage overall, gaining 50% more damage to each armor save value across the board. So we've covered all the individual buffs, but now let's take a look at how much damage we can get these little Bloodletters to do. As a quick side note, I only used 3 abilities and excluded Heads Must Roll. You could also cast this at the same time, but that would require 14 Blood Tithe points and used over 2 turns. And that's not something that's going to happen very often, so I wanted to keep this within something that could be possible within a game turn. In this chart, we have the damage from all 3 different buffs applied. We have All Out Attack, Slaughterer Triumphant, and Unholy Flames, giving +1 to hit, +1 to wound, crit mortals, +1 rend, and +1 attack. These combined make the lowly Bloodletters a force to be reckoned with, doing 11.3 damage to the 2+ save Annihilators. That would be almost 4 dead in the reinforced unit, and 13.3 damage to the 3+ save Boys, killing over 6 in one turn, and doing 17.5 damage to anything with a 5+ save or worse. Looking at the percentages, we can see a massive damage increase across the board, while seeing only slightly more on the heavily armored units. Looking back at the numbers, Slaughterer Triumphant with its +1 attack gives the single largest damage buff, followed by Unholy Flames with a cast of 10+. Both are expensive, but provide quite a punch. All Out Attack is more useful against weaker units like Clan Rats, where you can see a larger increase in the damage done versus stronger units like Annihilators or Boys. The abilities Heads Must Roll or the 5+ cast of Unholy Flames are better single buffs to use against tougher units, as the rend help negate their high armor save. Hopefully this helped you understand the Bloodletters a bit better, how you can expect them to perform, and what abilities work best to buff them against different unit types. Thank you for your time, and if you found this video helpful or informative, please give it a like, and please remember to subscribe and help support the channel. I'll be continuing to make more of these videos for different units. In the comments, please let me know if there are any specific units you would like to see covered. I will take them into consideration when making the next video.